I'm William Lord, and I'm a professor at Boston University, but I live in Maine, and this is where I live. This is our solar house. It was built 12 years ago, and we have essentially been harvesting the sun's energy all that time. I like to say that in solar power there is free lunch and dinner if you can afford the breakfast. A solar house will cost approximately 15% more to construct. Passive solar house without the bells and whistles on the roof, probably around 8%. But that's an investment in lifestyle. We are more comfortable in our house in the winter in Maine than practically anybody else around. It's warmer because of the passive solar gain. And when we have to pay our bill to the power company runs about $7.47 a month, which is the basic hookup charge to be hooked up to the grid. They are essentially our battery. From the time that we contacted the architect to the point where we could move in was 2 years. The house itself was about a year in the planning. We were living on Beacon Hill at the time. And a year in construction, because the construction of the house is more sophisticated, more complex, sturdier than your regular stick-built house. The right-hand side of the roof is making hot water now, and we store that in the basement in two 500-gallon tanks. And those tanks contain the heat to provide radiant floor heat during the night, and also helps preheat our domestic hot water. The magic to it all is that there's a sensor on the roof, and when it's 10 degrees warmer on the roof than the temperature of the tanks in the basement, the pumps turn on and circulate the water through the solar thermal panels. This goes on and off and on and off throughout the day, and then eventually it shuts off and waits for its next day of harvesting free energy again. The left-hand side of the roof is photovoltaics. It generates electricity from the sun. In the morning it sees the sun rise. That turns on the inverters in the basement, which convert direct current, which comes down from the roof, into household AC current. And that will continue throughout the day until the sun gets at a very acute angle and the inverters shut down. The magic of the system is that right now we're generating more energy than we need in the house. So it's being exported to the grid, and on the meters we get a credit for that extra power that we're not using, and we can draw down against that credit at no cost at night. It's a very seamless process, and on balance throughout the year we probably generate as much energy as we use. So in a sense we're getting a free ride in terms of energy. Every day the sun comes up and we get something from it. Today we're getting a great deal of energy. Today we're going to generate over 20 kilowatt hours. We on average use 10 kilowatt hours a day. So today's surplus stored on the grid, so that the next day, if it's cloudy or once again snowing around Easter time here in Maine, we'll draw down against that credit at no cost. In the event that we lose power, it's ridiculous for us to have an investment in photovoltaic panels on the right-hand side and not be able to continue to generate electricity. So we have a backup system so that when the power goes off, the backup system automatically turns on. It powers the necessary loads in the house, like the well, lighting, communications. And if we have an extended period of time when we have no grid electricity and the power is running down in the batteries, we can switch the photovoltaic panels into those batteries and recharge them. So we really have a mini standalone system here, as well as one that's hooked into the grid. Sometimes we don't know when we're on backup power unless we try to open the garage door, which is not on the necessary panel. Anyone thinking about building a home should build at least a passive solar home, which we have here to start with, and an active solar home has all of the ingredients on the roof. In terms of passive solar, you have highly insulated walls and ceilings. You have a south-facing, highly glazed surface in the house to take in that winter heat and extrude the summer heat, because we have an overhang on the roof which will keep the direct rays of the sun out of the interior during the summertime. So in building a house, anybody today has got to think about building a passive solar house at least, because that will probably take care of 65% of your heating needs. In the manufacture of photovoltaic panels here in the United States, the majority of the output goes overseas. More and more, though, Americans are beginning to look toward photovoltaic panels and solar energy to reduce their overall cost of living. Now, this house was the first of its kind in this area, but if you look over here to my neighbors, you can see that they've installed a very large photovoltaic array so that they too can begin to harvest free energy. They have electricity in their house to heat the house, and they certainly don't want to continue to pay those bills. This one house in the last 12 years has prevented some 70 tons, that's 70 tons, of CO2 from entering the atmosphere because we haven't used fossil fuels. My wife and I are proud of living in this house. This house has become a magnet for publicity, and I'm more than delighted to be an evangelist. We've had the History Channel here. We've had Home and Garden Channel. We've had CNN was here a couple of weeks ago. Nova is doing a documentary called Saved by the Sun, and that will be broadcast later this month. We have had Connecticut Public Television here. We have had Maine Public Television here. So this is an example of what we need to do nationwide in order to get ourselves into the business of accepting free energy on a daily basis. Much better to take it from the sun than to have to worry about a tanker bringing it from the Middle East.